37 total. That's amazing.
That's awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself.
Okay. Well, good afternoon and morning, depending on what time zone you're in. As we've been doing preparation for this, it's been so interesting to learn the time zones and remember. So I will start with, my name is Jennifer Dillard, and right now we actually live in Carl Junction, Missouri. If you're looking at Missouri, it is the bottom left corner, the southwest corner. And so I'm so excited to join you here. I'll give you kind of my background of education. I have my associate's degree in education. Then I moved on to my bachelor's so that I could take a classroom role. Since then, I have gone on to get my master's and my specialist in leadership education. And then I also added my gifted certification because that was in one of my districts, I was asked to teach gifted. I started out in the classroom for 7 years teaching 4th grade. I love it. Then I moved on to an instructional coaching role, which I call the teacher of teachers. I got to come alongside of teachers and help teach them the content that was coming along because it comes along so fast and furious. And then for the last 5 years, I have been an assistant principal in an elementary school near our hometown. I've moved into a new building, but it's been amazing to serve as an administrator and continue just a different perspective of education. I just tell myself I have a greater impact because I can see lots of different classrooms on a daily basis. So the title of my presentation is The Impact of Education. I should also say my husband and I serve at Destiny Church in Joplin, Missouri. We are the Connect Group pastor, so I serve as a ministry role along with my educator role. I love that. I love that we're still connected to our local church. We have 2 amazing kids, 9 and 12, so we are always busy running about, but that's how we like it. So on to education. I will tell you in this presentation, you will see my passion for education come through, no matter if it is teaching or if I have the ability to speak somewhere. I count it a blessing to be able to serve as an educator. And Brittany is so gracious to drive for me as she's doing our presentation. So I'm gonna let her go ahead and move forward. So I do want to start with, it is a calling. It truly is something that I felt really early that I was supposed to be in the classroom serving kids and the community and parents and partnering with them. And so I will tell you, as you start to feel that pull on where should you go and what should you do, and as you're making those big life decisions and where you are right now, I will say when you're struggling between that question I had in my head when I was entering, it was, should I enter something in ministry? Because I felt God calling me toward that as well. But then education, I loved the classroom experience. And so I will tell you, God calls us to those places to be his hands and feet. And in this one, it's Colossians 3:17 is, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it in the name of the Lord, giving thanks to the Father through him. And I tell you, I work as unto the Lord. When I enter that classroom, when I am talking to those littles, because my experience has been K-7. So I haven't really had a secondary perspective, but I'm telling you, no matter what kids sit in your classroom, you are the hands and feet of God. And so know that I had in our chat, someone said, I'm not sure that I am enough. Let me tell you right now, who God calls, he equips. And so when you enter that classroom, you are equipped. So you can go ahead, Brittany. I will tell you, in a season where we're not sure what education is going to look like, I cling to that knowledge that God is going to equip us as we enter this season with COVID-19 and everything and all the difference it's made. So the next few slides, I'm going to kind of explain to you what educators do. A lot of it you practically know. You know that you go to school, you get your bachelor's degree in education, depending on where what state requirements you have, and then you enter the classroom. but I kind of want to give you a more global perspective on what education is beyond just that classroom element. Now, don't get me wrong, that is amazing and all that you will do to teach students, but I kind of wanted to go through more of what you might not know. So I call it the ripple effect, and I coined this term a long time ago when I was doing some trainings, that educators, we have what's known as a ripple effect. We actually, my favorite quote here is, teachers make all of the professions possible. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about a profession, they came from a classroom. They came from a group of educators, K-12, coaches, administrators that poured into their life, that set them on a path of where they were going. I actually had this amazing experience. It was last weekend. I was at Walmart. There was something about an Apple Watch that we were purchasing and it wasn't working out. So I was back in the tech room area of the building, and this kid comes up to me. He's wearing a mask, so I can really only see his eyes. And he is helping me for about 10 minutes. And finally he says, "Mrs. Dillard, what are you doing? How are you doing?" And I said, "Oh my goodness." And like those moments where it clicks, you recognize that person. And I said, "Alex, how are you, buddy?" He said, "I'm good. I'm actually going into education. I'm in the middle of my program." And let me tell you right now, I call that a ripple effect moment, where I got to see later in life what my impact, what that time, not mine, what God did through me. Because this young man was a spirited fourth grade boy that required a lot of attention and a lot of me as a teacher. And but I looked at that student, oh, let's see, that would be, I mean, over a decade ago, and said, "You are going to do great things." And so I have had that over and over and over again. And no matter what role you serve in education, they come back to you, and they carry your voice with them. I've had kids say quotes that I forgot I even used over and over again as a teacher. They'd come back to me and say, there were moments where those words came back to me. And so it rippled. I'll talk more about the ripple effect, especially within families and communities later, but know that it has such a great impact that you stamp on their heart forever. It's so much that there's a quote from educators that they say, I actually tell my teachers when I'm training them, so that they understand the impact of what they do, that two teachers that are underperforming in a row for a student can make an impact on how far they can go. Now that sounds dun dun dun, but what I say is flip that. Teacher after teacher after teacher impacting their world can have this amazing effect on where they go. And actually, at this moment, you're probably thinking of teachers, names and faces, and those people that affected you K-12 are coming to your mind. Well, no matter how hard or the job is, because I will tell you, education doesn't pay a lot, and there's long hours, and we're dealing with a lot, especially if you see us as educators. We're entering a season of insecurity, kind of, as we're entering this next school year. But those people make an impact. We lay the foundation that is built upon in the future. So I'm glad that I get to be a part of that. All right, you can go on to the next one. So I'm a quote collector. So I'm actually a collector of stories and quotes. So when I do trainings, I was actually doing a training 2 days ago for our district. I help train all of our substitute teachers. And I said, I am a collector of stories and quotes. And as soon as you tell me a story, it then becomes my story, but don't worry, I'll give you credit. So another thing educators do, no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. God calls us into relationship with him. He loved us so much that he sent his son. And in that is relationship. He calls us to be close to him, and he invites us in. We get to have those relationships with kids. We get to walk them through hard things. You're going to have students in your classroom that go through hard things, that are facing trauma, and that there's some uncertainty in their lives. and you get to be close to them. There are students that will enter your classroom that there is the only 8 hours a day that they feel safe. But man, you are that safety net. Something else I like to say we join them in their journey. So we don't just, as educators, we don't just teach kids. I have had more parent conversations, more community member conversations, more student conversations because of my role as an educator than I ever would have beforehand. Parents send us their best, and when you partner with those parents as an educator, you help grow them as well as you are growing the students. One of my favorite stories is actually about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had a little first grade girl that, again, I call them high spirited. She required a lot as well. I didn't have her as a teacher, but I was an assistant principal in the building. And so when she was requiring a little bit more, I got to invite her into my office. And I called mom because mom was struggling as well. Mom and dad couldn't figure out what was going on. She struggled through kindergarten. She struggled through first grade. And then I got to spend a lot of time with her and the family. I told mom, I looked at her straight in the eyes and I said, we're going to throw spaghetti against the wall as much as we need to make it stick. And what I kept telling mom over and over again with that phrase was, no matter what we have to try, no matter what we have to make work for her in education, we owe it to her and to you as her family to figure out what's going to stick. So now she's actually getting ready to leave my building. That was in first grade, and she's getting ready to go into fourth grade. And they move on. Nope, I'm sorry, actually fifth grade. You lose track of time. And she said, mom called me the other day and she said, hey, I just wanted to say thanks for helping me find that spaghetti and find how it sticks to the wall. And I just had to laugh because that came through relationship. So if you've ever wondered if our educators, ministers, we are the hands and feet of Christ. And so I will continue on my effort to work with those students and those parents and those community members. All right, Brittany, you can go to the next one. On the topic of community involvement. So John 13:35 says, by this, everyone will know you are my disciples if you love one another. I think educators, and I am partial, but educators embody love. No matter what we contact with, no matter what difficulty it is, no matter how what we face, we embody love, and especially in the community. So when you think about education, not only do we work with students and we work with their parents, but there are a lot of community impacts that we have that we could only have as ministers of education because of our role as educators. So this morning I actually was at Walmart in our town that our school's in, and handing out things, requesting donations for our students for their upcoming year. That is a limited opportunity because we only ask the district, those that are in our district, to come and serve in that role of helping get donations for our students that are in need. And so had I not had the network connection of being involved in the district, I wouldn't be able to have as much of an impact in our community. So today, there were many opportunities that I had while wearing my mask in the front of Walmart, handing out papers to say, God bless you, and I hope you have a great day. Several conversations on what school's going to look like, and honestly speaking in peace amongst the situation, and asking God to give me wisdom, words of wisdom. But I was able to be on the front lines with our public, handing those things out. Also partnerships that we've had, and they'll be different in your area, but know that those partnerships still exist. The YMCA, our library does a program that through our school, our parks and rec department, they will open up things for educators and for students that they wouldn't open up for other opportunities for, even government officials. So as our town is working through what COVID restrictions we're using, they've asked educators to come sit at that task force and to join them in those conversations as they make decisions for our city, because they see us as such a valued force in our area. And also these partnerships, they want to use our educators in the trust that we have with families. When you have a student once, you have them forever, and you have their families. Some other things that we've done, lunch buddies, where community members come into the schools. Pre-COVID, they come into the schools and they have lunch with kids with parent permission. Church partnerships. We have a church that has worked with my last building. What they did is actually provided coffee on a regular weekly basis. And it seems like and it's to our teachers and our staff. Seems like such a small thing, but that partnership, that cup of coffee, got some teachers through some really hard days when they were going to go be the hands and feet of God, but it was hard. And so partnerships like that make all the difference. Things that educators get to do as well. During the pandemic, when schools shut down and kids were looking and needing us still, we got to see those little faces through the car when we were delivering supplies to them, school supplies, because they were still doing school at home. And some of them didn't even have pencils. And so we would deliver them to their houses, or we would put them outside the school. I got to deliver a packet of learning to a student. It was a way far to drive, but the parents didn't have access to come and get that packet, and it got lost in the mail. And so I was able to go and minister to that family just by talking to them at their front door. Meal delivery. I was able to help a fellow educator deliver meals out on a very rainy day during this time, but it was so great to talk to people. And you brought them food, but you also brought them hope by their smile and that hug. And then we were also able to serve where people would come through in their cars. Many of you probably have lots of programs like this in your building or your areas. But our profession brings the community together. I many times have I sat at a table where there were so many community members that were represented. All right, next. This is going to be a practical one of what educators do. And then after this slide, we're going to go on to the activity. So as part of the shifting that we've seen in culture and home life, and just even both parents working in homes, we see a need for essential skills to be taught in the schools. I'm going to go on and explain a little bit more about this. So what we teach now in school that we didn't teach a generation ago, even 15 years ago when I started in education, we didn't teach the things we teach now. I have sat with third grade boys and helped them learn to tie their shoes. If I start crying, just know, again, this is a work of the heart. And every time I bring it up, I think of different moments. I had some girls in my, maybe fourth grade girls, that they just didn't even know how to have an adult conversation. And their teacher had asked me, hey, can you just walk them through what a respectful adult conversation looks like? And so I was able to teach several times over my career manners. Hey, can you say thank you? Hey, can you, many things that you would normally learn around the dinner table, but instead of looking at it as something that we have to take on as educators, instead of it looking at it as an obstacle, I look at it as an opportunity. So it's an opportunity to teach those students, because I know the how to tie my shoes. I know those things that they need to be people. I know they're essential skills. And so I can teach them those things. And they'll never forget you when they're a third grade boy and they're so happy to go out to recess because they know how to tie their shoes. It's crazy. But yes, I've had those moments. I had a conversation with a kindergarten boy because he did not remember to put his clothes back on after using the restroom. I tell the story because it is just one of the funniest moments. He just forgot. So when I had a teacher deliver him to me, I had to remind him, and we had to go through over and over again a reminder of what the bathroom procedure is. it's really funny, but you know, kindergartners are my favorite. They're 5-year-olds and it's a new world to them. But it's those moments that you are, I think of Jesus when he said, let the kids come to me. And he showed them compassion and he showed them love and grace. And he imparted knowledge. And that's what we get to be. The last one I say is how to handle their emotions. I'll tell you, kids come what I call as shaken up soda cans. And they enter our buildings and they don't realize that they've been shaken up. And they may not realize that they're about to explode. But they walk in, they're hungry, they're tired, they may be helping their sibling get dressed and out the door in the morning. They may be dressing themselves to get out the door in the morning. And they get into our rooms and we ask them to complete their work and it explodes. But we don't get furious, we get curious. And then we put our educator hat on and we teach them how to handle their emotions. And we teach them how to handle conflict and to know, and we love them and we work with them through that. So, okay, let's go on to the next part. If you're anything like me, you were getting ready to graduate high school and you felt this calling toward education, but it feels big and it feels daunting and cumbersome sometimes. And you don't know if that's really what God wants you to do and if that's what you want in your life. So I didn't have the fortune of finding this book when at that season, but ever since I found this book and this chart, this kind of activity that I will call it, I've shared it over and over again. I get to go into colleges and introduce myself and ask them questions, and they get to ask me questions as they're getting ready to enter our buildings as pre-service teachers in their junior and senior year of high school and college, sorry. They get to come into our building, but there's some protocols and some things we have to discuss with them. So I see it as an opportunity, but I get to talk to them. And Simon Sinek is an author and he writes a book, Start With Why. He's written a bunch of other books about why, but I will tell you to start with why as the center of what you are. And even if right now, if you have a piece of paper in front of you or you are using your phone, this can be what I call a walk away question. But what's your why? Our why drives us. Our why is what keeps us cemented in what we do and why we're doing it when the waves come and they will and when you feel beaten down, your why is what keeps you going. It's your cause or your belief. But the way you'll know that it's connected to education is you can't think of your why outside of kids. You can't think of how you would be living life or what you would be doing as those outer rings without thinking of kids. And so it's often, he refers to it as the golden circle. And so in a second, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to give you some next steps and we're going to take question and answer. But I want to give you just a couple minutes to really start the pondering process on your why. And then before we move on from the slide, I'll share with you my why and how it's evolved over time. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think, put some thinking music on. And I'll kind of count you down from our 2 minutes. That's been about 1 minute. We'll go 1 more minute longer. It'll kind of get you a start. All right. As you kind of wrapping up your thoughts, I continue wrapping up your thoughts, writing those down, starting that conversation, that inner conversation with you and God, on your why. And you can look up that book if you are interested. But this past school year, I had the privilege of going to Ron Clark Academy. If you've never heard of that, it is a private school in Atlanta, Georgia. Ron Clark is the head of the school. He's the face of the school. He's one of the teachers. But while I was there, I got to hear him. However, someone I fell in love with was another teacher, and her name is Kim Bearden. She is kind of the administrator of that school. And while she was speaking, she brought me to tears. I would say my why has evolved over time, but when she articulated this, it connected with my heart with such an impact that I will call it my why forever. She said, "I don't seek achievements. I seek significance." And the difference is I'm not looking for the next position or for the next title or what else I can be, but I'm asking God that I will be significant in people's lives, and then I add through education, because it seems that's my area. So significance, asking God to be significant. Again, as his hands and feet. So we can go on the next one. I will leave you with some thoughts. We're going to go through question and answer, and then we'll talk about the end with our next steps. Just some advice, some practical steps if you want to go into education. Okay, Brittany, I'll give it to you from here. I think there's if there's some questions.
Alrighty, I'm jumping back on. Let me just stop sharing the screen. And then someone asked, how do you know that this is what you're supposed to do?
And that'll actually connect to a couple of the next steps that I'm going to give them. When you're in high school, there's usually programs through your high school or even early into college where you can get into schools. We call them TEA. I teach students. We call them a variety of things. But what I see is they take a class in high school where they get to come and serve under a teacher a couple times a week. That's actually a class that they get credit for. And that way they can get into that environment. They get to test it through all the different levels, all the different specialties. So whether elementary, middle, high school, a specials teacher, special ed, we always need those teachers. They get to get in the classroom. Also, if you're attending a local church, I would tell you to serve in a kids program. One, you get to help out at your local church and serve there, but then you can also kind of see where your heart is. If it's in education, I will tell you, I had to remind myself as I was getting ready to go into college to seek that degree. I had to remind myself to attend church because I kept booking myself up in all the kids' classes. I wanted to. My parents were children's pastors, and so that was lucky I got to serve. But I would just say surround yourself with kids. If there's a why, go and try to get a program at the YMCA or your local children's area, like whatever's in your area. Try to find positions to seek out that you can serve with kids, and that will cement for you. At least it'll give a little more clarity.
That's awesome. Let's see. Our next question is, how do we bring our light into the public schools when we're not allowed to talk about religion?
Absolutely. Have you ever, I'm going to pose this question and then follow up. It's a question to a question. So have you ever met someone and you immediately just felt that they were different and you wanted to continue a conversation with them, or you kind of sought them out to speak into your life? Everybody's kind of picturing somebody different right now. or you just met someone and instantly you're like, wow, like that was amazing. That's the way I describe how we shine our light. Um, when kids, when I smile or I hug them, or just if a kid's having a rough day or they're not getting a concept and I put my hand on their back, or I reach out and I put a Band-Aid on someone at recess. I think it can be so practical that we shine our light. And it's so interesting. I was and I'll watch my time because I can tell these stories forever. I was in my office one day. I just happened to be, it was getting ready for Christmas break and all the kids were doing something. So I didn't need to be out in the building. I was cleaning my office, and my counselor, who I had really just been witnessing to, but not witnessing to, because I mean, I work in a school and I'm her boss, but just having intentional conversations that I feel like God opened. She came back to me and she said, there's something different, and I want to know what it is. And so it is open. She actually attends our church now. And we've had lots of conversations, deep conversations about relationship with God since then. But I never walked up to her and said anything besides, I'm here for you and you're doing great. And how can I help? So coming alongside people and meeting their practical needs and being there, I feel like that's the light. That's the light that no matter what, that the enemy can't put that into darkness, because that's God shining through us. So.
Such a good answer. I really love that that's so practical, not even just specifically in teaching, but in our general lives, like we can jump in and do those things. So that's fantastic. We've got another question that says, how do you deal with burnout? They're currently a teacher at a public school and they teach in their local church.
Absolutely. Burnout is something so often in our field. And I would tell you to, and I've been there. Actually, that's really why when I moved from the classroom to something else, I felt God saying, I felt I just needed something different. I would encourage you to find a renewed passion, whether it is for education. Sometimes I'm actually gonna answer this two ways. Sometimes it comes from harm. I will be honest, as a leader as an administrator, there's times that we come from harm from the people that are in our lives, or a harsh parent, or a situation where you've given so much that you then get to the point where you just have nothing left to give. And so I will answer it in two ways. One, I took time separately away from people. There was even times where I needed to go away to a different location. I'd say to my husband, hey, we're big campers. And so, hey, can we go camping? And I feel like I get a little teary. I feel like my light's going out. I feel like my why is diminishing. And so there's times that I would just sit and ask God to refresh me, and then ask him to put people in my lives to refresh me. Another season we were in where we felt burnout. We actually just stepped away from some things. I know this isn't very popular amongst, I think, pastors and sometimes leaders in our lives, but we'd asked to step away from some of the roles we were serving at church, just because we wanted to be our best. And so I will say time away. We don't often give ourselves enough downtime to then rise greater. But the more you do that, the more time you take, wherever your place is of renewal, find that place and reconnect with your why.
Awesome. Let's see. Emma asked, how many years of college is required to be a teacher?
Awesome. 4 years. It's a 4-year degree. I will say the way that school is going now, and if you carry a full-time job, I'm finding that people are they're having trouble graduate within those 4 years, especially if they take 9, if they don't take a heavier load, like 15 to 18 hours. So about 4.5 is what I usually, those that are asking, I'd say 4 in a semester. I'll give you a little hint here. If you go 4 in a semester and you graduate in December, some people are like, ooh, that's hard, because I don't have a job for that semester. Oh, but you do. You get to substitute, and you can sub in several different locations and districts. So you are seeking others out while they are then looking at you. I will tell you, a lot of my teachers I've hired came from those that subbed in my building once they graduated. So it's a great opportunity to get into schools.
Awesome. Let's see. Sarah asked, will it be harder to become a teacher because I'm homeschooled?
Oh, I don't think so. Here's what I will encourage you. I'll be really honest. I would just make sure that you have an ability to have those conversations around other people. Just make sure that you have people in your life that are speaking into you, and that if you're connected to a local church, just so that you can stay up on what else is going on in education. I know sometimes with homeschool, our nieces and nephews are homeschooled, and it is an amazing thing. They participate in some activities in the school and in the community, and I think that always helps them to stay connected to their area. So yes, you go, girl. Homeschooling's awesome.
Awesome. Let's see. Someone asked, how do I balance being vulnerable but then also appearing like I have everything together?
Oh, that is an amazing question. Because I'm telling you, I think for a season there, God took me on this growth opportunity is what I'll call it, a transparency. I have very clear, defined boundaries for myself in life. Like I think Lisa Turkis is the one that says, my best yes. Brittany, give me that question one more time. I want to make sure I'm heading in the right direction.
It's balancing being vulnerable and then feeling like you also have everything together.
Okay. So I will tell you my best yes. There was a season of time where I felt like I was going and doing everything because I wanted to make sure that I had it all together and everybody thought that I was great and everything. I had nothing wrong. But what I will tell you is the more that I also focused on my best yes, so that I was saying no to some things, and so I wasn't always everywhere feeling exhausted. And then the other thing is, when you accept, I felt like God took me through a season, and I'm still growing in that, where I love who I am in Him. So then I'm also able to, I accept my truth and who I am, so that when people see me, my flaws, they see the whole package. I know that I am only answering to an audience of one. And the person that I go to every morning for validation and for, validation is God. And so when I accept, and it sounds very, to God, validation, but truly, I mean, all my walls came down and I didn't have to have it together. And the less I had it together and the more authentic I was and transparent, the more God drew other people to me. So I would just say, let God define you so that others aren't.
Awesome.
There was a question. I'll come back to it. We're good. I just want to make sure we don't.
Let's see. We've got quite a few questions, and I want to try to really get as many of them as we can. So I'm also trying to look through and see if maybe we can lump a couple of them together.
Awesome. Well, okay. I will, let me tell, while you're coming through that, I was going to say, let me give you go ahead. What question do they have?
Okay, I was just going to say, so one person asked, what can you do to have kids calm down and listen? And then the other question that I feel like tied in with that was, how do teachers keep so much patience with kids?
Absolutely. Okay, so I will tell you both of those. It is all about training. I am a junkie of professional development. I actually just trained our substitute teachers for our district on classroom management and how to de-escalate students and things like that, how to manage those. Here's the thing, you want to get a lot of strategies in place to just quick directions. The more expectations, the more that your students know your expectations, the less you're having to intervene and the more prevention you have. Be the firm voice in the classroom. You give them less words. So I say less ammo and less words. So simply, can you? Please do. Things like that. And then stepping back and see them as just people. One thing I will leave you with as well in terms of that, we often see educational needs as educational needs. Like when they can't read, we're like, oh, you can't read. But when we see behavior needs, we for some reason see that differently. Start looking at it through the lens of behavior needs are just as much of as education needs. It's a need or something that hasn't been met, and you're going to need to teach them through that. So instead of assuming they have that behavior knowledge, try to figure out how to break down that and teach them. Something I will also tell you, go to, I'm a proponent of BIST, B-I-S-T. There's lots of trainings, even when you're not an educator. You can look through, there's lots of images on how to do it, goals for their life, walking them through certain things. But look at it as a behavior, as a need, something, a teachable moment, and that will change your perspective.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw in 2 additional ones that I feel like tie in somewhat with what you were just saying, but maybe just a little bit of elaboration. The first one, the question was, do you have any book recommendations for teachers that are Christian-based or books that help you coach other teachers? And then someone else asked, how do we help kids that come to the church? This person is a TA in kids ministry that come from broken homes, and how can we understand them and help them better?
Okay, so let's go to the book first. I do read a lot of books, but I will tell you, I'm actually more of a podcast person, just because I can be watching or listen to a 45-minute podcast while I'm cleaning the house, and it serves dual purposes. So I don't have any books off the top of my head that I can think of. I would just put in some things like classroom management. Is when you're even as a Christian educator, you want to learn how to manage your classroom. I would say start with your why from Simon Sinek. I love that book. And then I would just find there's a lot of podcasts that you can follow, educators around the country that are in the same boat you're in, that can help you, that can teach you. So I would just start searching. You can also go to Pinterest and find educational podcasts that way, and great ones that you can start listening to. You can listen to a sample of them, and then give me that question one more time. The second question one more time.
So this person is a TA in kids ministry at their church, and they're wondering how to help kids who come from broken families.
Absolutely.
And how we can understand them and help them better.
Compassion and understanding and I will say partnering. A lot of the times you need to partner with that family and then develop a plan. If I would say to those people that are, I've met with our children's pastor before, if I could ask you what one behavior while they're with you would improve, because that's what sometimes is happening, is that they're showing behaviors in that program, and while they're with you that most people aren't equipped to handle. So if you could improve one behavior, it would make your life a lot better in there, and their life better, what would it be? And then what that does is it kind of focuses you in terms of then working with the family on setting some goals. If they're good that way. I would also say Ruby Payne. She does a lot of books on poverty mindset, and it does help you to see those children differently that come from poverty, because when we don't come from that background, we can't see the world the same way they do. So I would say do some Ruby Payne. She's on, you can YouTube that and videos. But when it comes to behavior, partner with that family. When you remind them that you're on their side, then you can do great things for that kid. Awesome. It's time to wrap up. I've got one thing to say. Okay. So as you look through questions, here's my other tip. As an administrator, I want everyone that's getting ready to go in, thinking about going into college to be an educator, please remember, you are always on an interview. If you meet any adult in education, what we are different than other professions is we remember people. I had a girl that I can still see her face. I met her when she was a sophomore at Southern, at one of our local universities. And I said, "You're going to education?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "In a few years, I want you to come back and I want you to teach for me." And she's like, "What? You don't even know me?" I was like, "Nope." I immediately, because you're always on an interview.
That's so good.
I will send it over to you.
Let's see, we've had a couple questions in regards to both what's most rewarding as being a teacher, but then also how do you manage when kids move on and they're not in your classroom anymore?
What is most rewarding? Seeing them grow up and learn. I will always love the light bulb moment. Even in no matter what role you fill, you will have the light bulb moment, and that's the most rewarding. Seeing them move on, it's almost like you have just, when you see them move on, know that you have stamped on their heart forever. Even if you never see them again, you've stamped on their heart. And I keep track of kids. I will tell you, certain kids that have been, that I just, God continues to lay on my heart. I track them down and figure out where they are. But once he puts them in your life for that season, and then they are moving on, know that you've made an impact, and he'll bring them back if necessary, or he'll help you find them.
That's awesome. Let's see. Callista would like to know, how will she know that she made the right choice in getting into education?
I would say it, as soon as I started taking those classes, I mean, I did have to commit to, I made the effort, or I jumped into signing up, that making that my major. I took enough classes at the beginning of, in my first year, and some kind of education class, so that I could figure out if that was where my fire of life was gonna be, or if I needed to move in a different direction. And I'll also speak into that question, because I think the heart is, am I doing the right thing? And what I'll say to you is, as now that I'm 15 years into this journey of education, that I didn't see what God was going to do, and at moments he turned he moved me to different places. If it's not right, God will show you, because he is the perfecter of putting you in the place where you need to be. And so just start endeavoring to go where you think that your heart is being called, and then let God do the rest.
That's so good. Looks like we've just got 2 more questions, and I think we've got time for them. The first one is, how do you continue to balance ministry and education?
Great question. My husband and I are very, so if you look at our calendar, we lay out our calendar so that we always have couple time and family time. People will tell us that we look really, really, really busy, and that's a good smoke screen. We decide collectively what we allow in, and what we say yes and we say no to. And it has nothing to do with, we would love to spend time with everyone and take on every opportunity. But we want to model for our kids what is their best yes, and what we want to invest in. Our family, like I said, we like to go camping. So we find those times to get away. And it's not, for us, it's not an option. When I'm balancing what we pour into in ministry and what we pour into teaching, it's not an option for us to, I am no good to anyone if I'm not full. If my tank is empty, I'm not going to be effective. And so I am very, I've asked God, and I think after seasons and seasons of fasting, I've prayed that God shows us when to pump the brakes and when to hit the gas. But we're also just very clear about what we do, we will and will not do, and the times. At a certain time of the day, our family just shuts down, and we want to be home, or on this certain night, we don't give this up, it's a sacred night. So just set your non-negotiables of life, and then stick to them.
That's so good. And I feel like that's so good, even just beyond, education.
Everyone. Yeah. We've got to have our non-negotiables.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then Jeannie Garcia would like to know if you would be willing to share your podcast that you listen to.
Oh, absolutely. I don't have the title with me. But I think if you can stall for a second, I think I can find it.
I think I can do that.
Okay.
Let's see. We've got about 5 minutes. So as soon as, if anyone has like one final question they want answered as she's looking for this podcast, consider this your final call. And then we'll get some last minute takeaways from Jennifer. And then for anyone else, Sarah said, do you like being a teacher?
I love it. I would not spend my time doing anything else. It it is a part of who I am, not just what I do.
That's awesome. And I feel like that's also part of what's so good about being where God has called you, is it just feels like that. It feels like, man, this is exactly where I need to be and exactly what I need to be doing. Even when it's hard, it's still good. And
Absolutely. And I cannot find that. I'm so sorry, but is there a way to maybe, we'll ask if we can get out to our participants. I can actually put together a book list and a podcast list, a formal one, so we can figure out who was in our session and get that to them.
I think so.
So I'm so sorry I don't have that, did not come to mind.
Let's see. And then Ravi Jones just wants to say thank you for all of your wonderful insight into teaching. And then Sarah said her mom runs a daycare, and in the summer she likes to play school with them.
Oh, awesome. If you would like, I can give my my email address, and if you guys have questions after this point, you can email me, and I can answer any of this. We can continue a conversation that way.
Yeah, I can put that in the chat.
Oh, I think I can just chat that. So, so when you see the email backstory, our first fish is named Gillard Dillard. So forever, my email is Gillard316. Favorite scripture and first fish.
That's awesome. We did have one more question that came through in the chat. Tiffany said, how do you handle discipline with also encouraging growth in students?
There's a lot of research you can do into fixed mindset versus growth mindset. A lot of times with kids, they don't see a growth mindset. And I would also ask you, if you look into that, check your growth mindset, because sometimes it's how our kids perceive us that changes that behavior piece. Say that one more time, just so I think I needed to hear it again. Ask that again, sorry.
How do you handle discipline with also encouraging growth in students?
When you set a goal for them, I'll give it to you in terms of this way. When my kids have to apologize, when my school kids in my building, this is a BIST tactic that I use. It's a 3-part apology. I'm sorry for, and then why it was wrong, but then next time I will. And that is the way you want to end it with them, because they're taking accountability for what they did in that apology, but also you're explaining to they're setting the goal of what's going to happen next. Also, when you ask a kid, when you're processing a behavior with them, ask them how they think it made you feel, or that other child. Because what they think when they're giving an apology or when they're handling that behavior, they're so egocentric, they can't even imagine what someone else might be feeling. Well, when you make them set a goal for the next time that it happens, or what would you do differently, or how did they feel, you take it out of them and you put it on them. They put a lens on of someone else, and then when they do that behavior again, they will think of what they in terms of that other person. So, goal setting.
Awesome. And then we've got one last question, and I think we have time for it. We've got about a minute. So Miley just asked, how do you deal with moms who think they know more than you do?
Absolutely. Remind them, so when I have to have some really hard conversations with parents when I call them, tell them their kids have done things in our building. Some really hard conversations. The first thing I start with is reminding them that I love their kid. And I give them a factual thing about that child. Because I have 500 kids in my building, but I find something that the why I love them. I love that your child is so spirited, and I really want to partner with you. And then also let them run out of steam. I find I know the parents coming in that they immediately have this agenda of things they want to tell me. And so I welcome that. In terms of let them go first. You tell me about your child. You are the expert in your child. It's really about validating them, and then bringing then they allow you to speak into them. Because understand, no parent ever wants to be in the conversation. I have a very high-spirited son. You notice that's how I use the phrase for, you never want them to call you and say, hey, your kid's done this. But when they know you love them, they'll go to the ends of the earth with you. and then when they know they're heard. We are the experts. It truly is. We're the experts, but we want to make sure that we hear them and their expertise on the child. So
awesome. That's so good. Well, I think we're out of questions. It looks like people have really enjoyed this. So thank you so much, Jennifer. I don't know if you have any like kind of final remarks that you want to give to everyone.
I appreciate everybody being here, and I wish you well. And I pray that God just sends you on an endeavor of education that I would just say represent us well. We need great educators.
That's so good. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We hope you really enjoyed this. I know I enjoyed hosting, and I believe I can speak for Jennifer and that she also enjoyed leading this. We hope that if you guys know anyone that is interested in education, there's going to be a second education breakout in 2 hours. We'll just say, in an hour. In an hour, not
yes.
in 2 hours. So feel free to send them our way. And I believe this is being recorded and will be available. So if there was anything where you weren't sure if you quite caught what she was saying, feel free to listen back to it. Other than that, we hope you guys have an amazing, blessed day, and we hope you enjoy the rest of this summer digital experience. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.